Live now, Johnny.
Let's go.
We're live now.
Evening, everybody. Welcome along. Thank you very much for tuning in to what we think is one of the first virtual fans forums. It certainly is for Bradford City and for us here at BBC Radio Leeds as well. Really appreciate you joining us tonight. I'm Johnny Buchan. I'm the sports editor at BBC Leeds. And over the next couple of hours, I'll be your host along with Jamie Rayner, who will have some questions as well. He'll be keeping an eye on the YouTube page. So if you have a question, put it in the comments section, which is somewhere down here, I'm told, or possibly over here. I've been told to do that by the YouTubers. If you want to put a comment in there, we'll try and get some of those read out as the evening goes on as well. But thank you all for the emails you've sent in to bbc.co.uk/Radio Leeds and via our email as well. We really do appreciate you sending all those in, and we'll try and get through as many as we possibly can. We've had absolutely loads that have come into us, from finance to transfers to Valley Parade. All topics are on the table tonight. And I can tell you as well, we haven't given these questions to our special guests beforehand. So hopefully some of the curveballs that you've thrown at us will be thrown in their direction, and they'll be able to try and answer them as the best that they can. So let's hear from our special guests tonight. And we'll have a couple more dialing in as the night goes on as well. But joining us throughout the evening is the club's Director of Communications and also Commercial. That's Ryan Sparks. And it is also the Bradford City manager, Stuart Mccall. I'd ask you to give him a round of applause. So do it at home. If you're watching at home, guys, how are we? Evening.
Evening, all good, thank you.
Ryan, all good?
All good, all good.
Valley Parade's looking nice. It's looking a bit better than my background of Valley Parade. It's looking better in the sunshine. We really appreciate you being with us tonight. I'm going to start by throwing a couple of questions at both of you, and then we'll go into all the ones that we've had in from the listeners as well. And if you miss any of this, if you need to leave early, if you need to disappear off to go for a pint or whatever it might be, then you'll be able to hear it at 6 o'clock on BBC Radio Leeds on Wednesday evening, also on our webpage as well in the coming days. So we'll tweet out a link to that at WYS Daily. Firstly, though, Stuart, how have the past few months been for you? It's been a weird couple of months for absolutely everybody. How have you found them?
Yeah, I think like everyone now, we're hopefully coming out of the pandemic, or, you know, lockdown's being eased. Things are getting a little bit more back to normal, although still a long, long way to go yet. But yeah, just like anyone, you know, it's been different and difficult. Obviously, the initial stages of it where, you know, with a lot of deaths and sadness. But regarding sport, we've obviously seen the Premier League's been back. The playoffs have been back. The football's been up and running, albeit without crowds, which is probably the most important. Supporters are the most important part of any football club. But it's good to start planning now. We go back on Thursday, so we've been in over the last few days. And, you know, from a coach and manager's point of view, that's when the excitement starts building.
How have you spent the time? What have you done? Have you learnt any new skills? Have you been out and about, getting fit? What have you been doing with the spare time that you found yourself with?
As you can see, yeah, I've been really keeping fit doing jigsaws. I did a 1,000-piece Disney jigsaw. But no, I'm actually fortunate where we live. We're out in the sticks a little bit, and there's a lot of areas to go walking and cycling, which I've done. We've been doing as a family. So I've actually probably done more fitness through boredom more than anything. But we've had some decent weather, haven't we, mixed in with some poor stuff. But I think initially when you could get that hour to get out, it was just desperate to get out. And now, obviously, the rules have laxed a little bit, and we've been on bigger walks, etc. But yeah, trying to keep fit mentally and physically, really, because that's a big test, isn't it, the mental side of it as much as anything.
Ryan, what about yourself? How have you found it? It's been a busy time, I imagine, and quite a concerning time at times for the club, I imagine.
Yeah, it's been concerning. You know, we've approached it in the most positive way we can from the start. Everything that's been thrown our way, we've got on with it. Excuse me. Some of the challenges change on a week to week, as Stuart has found out today. The way the training protocol is, it might not look the same in 2 weeks. But it's been a bit of a journey, hasn't it? I think for everyone in any business, and we're just a different business with different problems and positives and negatives that come out of something like this.
I suppose in one way, the big positive factor right now is that there is a bit of a horizon, isn't there, to aim for now in terms of games coming back. 12th of September seems to be the aim. We'll talk about a lot of the details around that, but how nice is it to actually have something to aim for now, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been in the office today and the conversations for the first time in a long, long time are about, and just having staff back in the office talking about how we might make it work and feasibility around season tickets, match tickets, how we're going to separate seats. and what we have to put in place. As difficult as all that is and the challenge it presents, the positives are we're doing things that are aiming towards getting the season off the mark, which I think we're all ready to do at this point.
Stuart, nice to have that date in the diary then.
Oh, yes, certainly. We've been waiting a long time for it, haven't we? Still waiting for other meetings about salary caps, etc., which no doubt we'll probably go into later. But yeah, I think there might be a possibility of a cup game prior to the 12th, maybe on the 5th, which we'll have to wait and see. But we're getting up and running now. We're looking at arranging pre-season friendlies, but again, we need to know all about testing. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but definitely exciting, and really, personally, really looking forward to getting back to training on Thursday.
It's only 6 weeks away then, isn't it? So the hard work's got to be put in. Right, we've got lots of topics to get into tonight, absolutely loads. If you do have a question, put it in the comments section on the YouTube page, or you can still email them if you like as well. We are monitoring the emails, westyorkshiresport@bbc.co.uk. Jamie will be keeping an eye on that and bringing any questions that you want to drop in later on. But thank you for all those that have come in over the last couple of weeks. Absolutely loads. I'm going to read a few of them out then. So we've got finance to get into a little bit later, which I'm sure Ryan's looking forward to, and the future of the club and all those kinds of things. But let's start with the football, and we are in the transfer window, Stuart. So a few heading in your direction, and you can chip in on these as well if you want, Ryan. The first one comes from Thomas Crawford. He says, how much of a decision with regards to players coming in and departing is actually down to Stuart? So how much of it comes down to you, Stuart? How much of the final say do you have?
I'm happy to say I have it all for the first time in a long time, which is brilliant, I've got to say. Obviously my previous spell at Bradford, I think most people know that. Having said that, I've got to be honest, when I look back to my second spell, should I say, at Bradford when I came back in 16 or whenever it was, if you look at we inherited a good group of strong squad from Phil, although it might have only been 9 or 10 players, but they're all good professionals. But obviously we needed to add to that. I'd just come down from Scotland, didn't know the English league as much, so I lent on Greg. Greg threw us Romain Vinsler, who I'd never heard of, did a background on him, very good. Nathaniel Knight Percival, John Dreyer give us that. Again, you do your homework, you watch him, and then I go speak to Darren Ferguson, a couple of managers that managed him. Likewise, Timothy Dien came on trial. Colin Doyle came from Banks, who just worked with him. So, I'm fortunate. I've been in the game that long that I've got a lot of contacts and a lot of people that I trust. So once I get names put to me, then obviously, it's different to 20, 30 years ago. I can go on this iPad now and look at any player around the world. And that's what I've been doing for the last 2 months. So regarding recruitment, I've probably looked at more players. And then if you find out there's a lot of brackets they come into, you've obviously got to be able to afford them. Then they've got to be decent players. But as much as anything, it's about your character. And that's when your homework starts, and you get in touch with people, you look where they've played, get in touch with people who've managed them, who've played, who've shared a dressing room with them. It's so important. And then prior to doing that, if you can, before signing, it's always good to meet them and speak, look them in the eye and speak face to face. So, but no, I've got to say, my relationship with both Stefan and Julian, I speak to Julian every day, has been fantastic. And we're left to get on with it, which is great.
How important was it for you when you were coming back to the club that you had that assurance that you were going to be the one making those decisions? Was that a big factor?
Well, it would have been if it had been any other club. Once I got the offer, but I knew what it would be like working with Julian. I know how he works. He's honest, he's upfront, he'll tell me the budget and I'll work towards a budget. That's what happens. And, there's no, hidden agendas. It is how it is. Obviously, we've been hit with this terrible pandemic, and, finances of football club, and obviously ours, but throughout the world has been hit. There's no money coming in. So, then your budget reduces like every other club. I'm not whining about it. It's a fact. So as much as we know that as managers and coaches and football clubs, so the players know it as well. So there's wheeling and dealing to be done. But once I got the opportunity to come back, it's something I'm really positive about. I think me and Kenny, when we came in, I think how many games we had? 15 left. We still had 9 games to go when it closed down. But I think to get a pre-season with the players is huge, and that's what we've got a way we're going to play, or we would like to aim that we're going to play. We've recruited the players that we can fit into that system, we believe. And it's really exciting times, and as I said, we can't wait as a football club to get going.
We'll come on to your style of play. Lots of questions coming in about that style and what it might possibly be as well. But just sticking with transfers for now, a big one is James Vaughan. And this one comes in from James Story. And it's also been asked similar questions by Mac Butterfield, Darren Slater, Bronco as well, all asking this point. With the continuing rumours surrounding James Vaughan's future, how confident are we of keeping him at the football club? Looking from the outside, it seems to be crazy to be trying to offload someone who guarantees plenty of goals at this level. What are your thoughts on that, Stuart?
Well, let's get this clear, first and foremost. There's nobody at this football club is looking to offload James Vaughan. For me, James Vaughan in Division 2 will give us goals and in performances. So clear that up straight away. There is nobody, and it wouldn't matter what finances he's on, we want James Vaughan at our football club. So at the moment, he's got another 2 years on his contract. So clear it up. There's nobody trying to squeeze James Vaughan out of this football club. I want him here to be playing for us, and hopefully that will be the case.
Very simple, quite equivocal then. Ryan, in terms of the director's level view of that one then, it's the same opinion? It's you want to keep a hold of him, doesn't matter about the finances?
Well, absolutely. I mean, look, Stuart's got the full support of the sort of hierarchy of the club. He knows that. We're all behind him. It's what we want. We want the manager to manage and the manager to recruit the people he needs to manage. We will not, we would not want someone like James Vaughan to walk out of our club, and we certainly wouldn't hand him to a rival without significant compensation. So that's, as Stuart says, we know what he's got in his locker, and we both want him to be a Bradford City player in the coming months.
In terms of players coming in then, Stuart, and that's obviously great news that fans will want to hear about James Vaughan staying around, but players coming in, Paul Jackson has asked this, along with the likes of Ray Allen and Gavin Cockcroft as well. It's many fans' view that the squad lacks an obvious outfield leader, ideally a central midfielder, says Paul here, who can provide some grit to the team. Does Stuart intend to address this in the coming weeks? And I'm guessing by the nodding and the smiling you do.
What's he going to do?
If anyone's been following me over the years or listening to what I've been saying, leadership is a quality that is severely lacking in football nowadays, I believe. Leadership. I've said it for the last 15 years. And I don't know if that's through academies or people being brought up not having to take responsibilities. So for me, we inherited, or we've still got 14 players signed on. A couple in there can be leaders. It's up to me and Kenny to lead naturally, but also I want other people, and I've had a lot of chats to one-to-one chat. I want people to stand up next season and be leaders in themselves. Now that might be vocally, it might be doing it on the pitch, it might be in the dressing room. So yeah, listen, everybody, and again, you probably heard me say this before. I was on a conference probably 12, 18 months ago, and Pep Guardiola was hosting it. And unbelievably, we're talking about Pep Guardiola at Manchester City. And he said, really, now, the only really couple of leaders he had in that dressing room was Company, and I think De Silva, Fernandinho maybe. But they were wonderful, wonderful players. But even, the leadership types are few and far between. But I'd say at the point, now I still believe the players we've brought into this football club, the ones that we've brought in recently, have all got a great desire to be, not only to be here, but to be successful and to really strive, to be the best they can. So in the ones that we brought in, I know what we're bringing to the club. I can trust them. Now, do we need to go and get a big enforcer who's, snarling in the middle of the pack? Yeah, I mean, I've had plenty put to me, but none really that I think will suit how we want to go about it. And as I say, it's a dying breed in football, it's leadership. So we have all got to take responsibility. Everybody in the club has got to show them leadership qualities. And together, if we get bits out of everyone. But in an ideal world, would I like 2 or 3 leaders in there, Roy Keanes or whatever it may be? Of course I would. And we've been striving to look for these type of players. But I believe in some of the players we've brought to the club, they've got an inner determination and mental strength, allied to the ones that we've got here, which we can work with. We're not only working tactically, technically and physically, we've also got to work on the mental side of the game and the way we go about things. And that's a key area from us. But it's about everyone buying into what we're after, and we will get that from them.
Yeah, that comes, I guess, down to building a unity between the players, doesn't it? No matter where they come from, no matter what level they're coming from, it's about getting them working together, bit of harmony between them.
100%. And I think nobody will be in any doubts. And there weren't once we walked in the door a few months ago, whenever it was, obviously prior to the COVID, what we're after. First and foremost, it's about team. Obviously, we want individuals to go and flourish in that team, but it's about a team ethic, a togetherness. You look at all the top sides, or any sides that win anything. Even you go to our division, Northampton, who've just got up in the playoffs. The first thing they talk about, they don't talk about the individuals of this or that. They talk about the togetherness. And that's what any success is built on teamwork. And that goes not only from the players, it's the staff, it's the board, it's certainly the supporters, getting together and being as one. And that's, we've got, you only have to look behind you, the stadium that we've got. And we're all desperate to do well for this football club, because we know there's been a lot of struggles of late. But we can get this back going. I've no doubt in my mind that we can get back going. Not making any promises, but we will be working our hardest to instill a unity, a togetherness, hence the people we brought in. I know what they're like as characters. And that's so big in a dressing room. You get some good senior pros in that dressing room, they run the dressing room. You get some good young hungry ones to learn off them. It makes for a great environment. And that's what about the football club is, from my point of view, is creating an environment that people want to come learn, they want to improve, and ultimately they want to succeed. And that's what we're all after.
Peter's emailed a question in, Peter Moss, which kind of touches on that. He says, in recent seasons, we've signed a mixture of young players, experienced pros, players with championship experience as well, but we've seemed to have gone backwards. Does the club have sufficient scouting resources to recruit the best players for our team? How do we ensure that we have, and it's Peter's words, not mine, more Naki Wells and less Hope Akpans as recruits?
Yeah, well, I'll go back to years and years ago. It was down to, you probably had a not head of recruitment, a chief scout who would go out every Saturday and look at players, etc. Nowadays, as I'm saying, I can go on the iPad. Now, it's not the same as going and watching a play in the flesh. I take that. I think certainly for younger players who are playing in the, but then again, I've went to watch in the last 4 years so many academy and under 23 games, if you like, and it's almost non-football. You go watch the academy players playing at Man City, Man United, you don't see a tackle. You try to bring them down into Division 2. They might look good on the ball and have time because nobody puts a tackle in. It's different type of football, certainly to Division 2 level, that's for sure. But as I said, I must have had 50 to 80 agent scouts, that'd be right. Agents come on to me with a list of names, asking what positions I want. I give them a list of positions, a budget, that we're not really sure of yet, but in an area of, what we can afford. And then I go do my homework, watch them, get in touch with people. So, yeah, I think certainly years back, it was imperative to have a scout. But nowadays, I think certainly for the younger players coming through that I won't get to see, but a lot of players that I'll be scouting will be from our level that we've played against. I've watched today, having said that, I've watched today people from Austria, from Germany. So I take the point, but let me assure everyone that I and Kenny are getting onto people from Scotland, from everywhere, Ireland, and looking at a number of people, right, that we can hope to bring to the football club. But I think what happens when for example, Greg was here, we would say to Greg, right, this is what we're going to be looking for. These are the positions. He knew the budget. He would then go make a list for us, give us a list. I think what happens nowadays, certainly at lower levels, you maybe get a chief scout and he'll have an idea how you play. Now, last season, anyone know, or for the last few seasons, I've played, my teams have played so many different ways. And I think you've got to be adaptable and flexible. So sometimes you're not getting an individual to fit in a certain pattern, like, or you play three at the back, or you don't only play one striker. So we're not like defining that type of person, but the type of characters are huge. It's a type of character you bring into your football club that's going to have a positive effect on the group. But I will, and have done, I'd like recruiting players myself. I think I've got a decent record over the years. I mean, I remember at Motherwell on YouTube, YouTube, we got a guy in from twice from Estonia, won £350 we paid him for a month. And we sold him 6 months later for 350 grand. And we did it with his pal a year later. So, but you get him over for a trial, you have a look at him, which you can do at this level, really. I mean, that's going to be more difficult nowadays because of the COVID and having testing, etc., in the short term. But we're scouting wise, I don't think many clubs at our level have got a head of recruitment chief scout. Maybe obviously higher up the ladder you go, definitely. But if somebody said to me, I don't even know how much money they would be on, here's 20 grand to have a head of recruitment, or you can have 20 grand to go get your training pictures done or help with a pitch. I know what I'd pick because I can scout and watch any player, and I've got the contacts that can get in touch with people to know about the characters. So, you know, I think we can spend his money better. Don't get me wrong. As the club progresses and hopefully we start going up the pyramid, then, you know, people like that come involved. And you do then start building up. But I certainly think at the younger level, to bring play people into your football club at an early age, a young age, then, you know, that is really important.
Any Estonians or Austrians or Germans tickle your fancy then from the YouTube videos you've watched?
It's been Y-Scout this time. I'm off YouTube now. No, it's because I say at the moment they're quite difficult ones. Yeah, and bearing in mind also you have a relationship, or you try to have a relationship with agents, but you've also got to remember this, that they're as desperate as anyone, as desperate as a player, because they've not been earning any income in the last 5 or 6 months. So having to say to agents, now I know you're desperate to get moving on so you can make a few quid, but don't give me anybody because I won't deal with you again. But they give you players, and it's up to us to look at them and say, not for me, not that position, is not what we're after. But it's about doing your due diligence on them once you do like them, and then obviously you've got to try to get to a point where you can afford them, and then you try to meet them and say, yeah, I'm looking at your eyes and I know you want it.
There's a few people that have messages about the academy setup and the academy system as well. Sam Mason says, with the salary cap for the lower two divisions, does it incentivize investing more money in the academy and the youth structure? Always seems like it's something that we focus less on compared to other local sides, which results in very few players making the first team. What's your take on that, Stuart? And then I'll get yours on it, Ryan, as well, in terms of the investment side of it.
Yeah, sure.
I was going to say, I'll pass it on to Ryan in a minute, but I've got to say, we've had a lot of players. We might not have had a lot of players that have got into the first team, but we've had a lot of players that we've sold on at 14, 15, 16-year-old, and might be actually in the process of doing a couple of them, you know, shortly. So I think, listen, the academies are huge for clubs at this level. There's no doubt about that, and recruitment into that academy. But I think over the recent time, we've had some players in that we've moved on to other clubs for money that's not played in the first team. I know that, but Ryan will know more about the infrastructure than I do at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think it is. I'd take. I wouldn't agree that it's not an area of focus for us. I think it's a massive area of focus. We have a number of staff, a really big staff pool in the academy. You know, we are approached by Premier League clubs on a quarterly basis about our players, and it provides funds that we can then reinvest into the academy and, of course, into the first team. I think the salary cap. Look, we don't want the salary cap. Let's be clear, it's a very, very negative system for football in the long term, and we hope it doesn't get voted through. Although I doubt it massively. So what we will do is, if it goes through, we'll readjust. And as you said, look, there is a caveat in there that if you recruit a player below the age of 21, you can re-sign him up to the age of 24, and it doesn't harm the salary cap. Only a proportion of that player's wages would count, and that gives us a bit of scope, as Stuart says, and it does emphasise more on the younger side and the academy and whatnot. But we've got, from my perspective, you know, we don't pick the team, but there's 5 really exciting young lads gone into the first team squad. And the way they talk and what they've said about becoming professionals is it's definitely made a mark with people at the club, and it's going to be interesting because from those lads say, they're not there to make the numbers up. And it excites me to see lads from Bradford or lads that we've gone out and recruited from elsewhere at a young age be pushing and knocking on the door for place in the first team. I'm sure Stuart would agree with that. So the academy is of immense focus to us. Revenue in the future that we generate beyond what we can spend under a potential salary cap would undoubtedly be aimed back at the performance side of the business and our wider infrastructure, which has always been the case, to be fair.
We've got loads of questions here to get through tonight, so I'm going to move on from transfers. Hopefully we've given you a bit of an insight there, even though we didn't get any names from Stuart, despite trying. If you do have any that you want to share, Stuart, please feel free. Let's move on to fans getting back into stadiums, because this is probably the email we've had, or the most emails about, actually, to our email address. Sam Norman has been in touch with us, also Paul Rhodes, Joe Dunn, Brian Walker, Nick Kitchen from Bantam Small Talk. Thank you all for your emails regarding this. Simply put, when will fans be let back into grounds, and how will it be done? Will it be a third allowed in? And if so, how will you decide that third from the 12,000 season ticket holders who attend? Ryan, what do you know about when they might be back and how it might work when indeed they do come back?
Can I just put in there before Ryan answers that?
Go.
Right? Because Ryan's got all the answers. I have no answers. But when we do a percentage, okay, I want what people call the happy clappers back to come in. I don't want the moaner and groaners, right? I want the positive supporters that are going to come down and support the lads from the first to the last, okay? So if you're one of them, you're more than welcome. You get my vote.
And if you're not, stay away.
We'll persuade them. We'll get them back. Don't worry.
I think we'll save some money and get you on the turnstiles then, Stuart, yeah? Look, it's a big subject. It is the most important subject that any club, certainly in the football leagues, facing right now, and that is, it's ever changing. Quite simply put, we don't know what our capacity will be. We've got a rough idea. We're hoping it's as high as possible, and I would like to think by the early parts of August we'll be able to say this is how it will be, and this is the reason. For what it's worth, we're absolutely determined to make sure no one is disappointed, no one misses out, and we'll come up with the fairest system we can, but we're bound obviously by EFL regulations and quite ultimately government guidelines. But it's progressing. I think we'll have some supporters back in the stadium in October, which, if you remember what I said on one of your shows, Johnny, in maybe May or June, I presume that might be January, yeah. So we're already ahead of where things are, but we have to be mindful that with the potential for local lockdowns, which are constantly being threatened in Bradford as a city, we've got to come up with a solution that provides fluidity and the potential actually for the capacity to go up and down. And we do have to be ready for that. So it's not as straightforward as let's get season tickets on sale and see what happens. That's just not the approach we're going to take. We're going to try and be as strategic as we can about it. But ultimately, as Stuart said tonight, the supporters are at the heart of our thoughts every day. So we will come up with the best possible solution, which is fair for as many people as possible.
How is the club going to be able to afford that as well? Because one of the big issues about why the season was ended early, Ryan, as we've spoken about many times, is that to bring your staff back off furlough, players as well, back off furlough, costs a lot of money, doesn't it? And if you haven't got fans coming through the turnstiles, or you haven't got the ability to have full capacity stadiums, then how is the club going to foot the bill for that?
Well, look, quite honestly, I think if most clubs in League Two specifically had it their way, they would actually delay the start of the season. But we have commercial obligations. Carabao Cup is a big one, and it's worth a massive six figures to every club in this division. If we start late and that competition was to be parked, you would be then looking for another, say, 300 grand to pump into clubs to keep us all alive. I think we need to remember where we're at in this. You know, no one's out of the woods, us included. Right now, we are relying on the support of our owner, and we're not on our own. We're not on our own in that, and it's not a comfortable position for us to be in, because we like to be as self-sufficient as we can and crack on, for want of a better phrase. But it's tricky, and ultimately, Johnny, the costs are excessive. You know, we're looking at some of the equipment that we've had to purchase in recent weeks, and Stuart will tell you we've got stuff all over the training ground. It's going to be, I mean, I went to the training ground this morning. It's like nothing I've ever seen. We've got chairs separate. You know, we're going to have gazebos outside. It's going to be interesting. and the costs are there, and of course our revenue is still virtually zero. So look, we have some funds coming in from transfers, the Oliver McBurney windfall, and obviously Sheffield United staying in the Premier League is a help to us. But you have to understand that we have also generated quite a lot of debt in this time, and we've had to work closely with HMRC, as of every club, I think, outside of the Premier League, to help, quite frankly, stay in business. And there's no point dressing that up, because that's the reality of the situation. Right now we're signing players, and Stuart's been able to add to his squad, but it's difficult. We would like to do lots of things, but you can't just keep printing money. It's not realistic, and it will come back and get us further down the line. So I think we're trying to do it in the more sustained, controlled manner as we can. And I think, personally, knowing what I know inside out, I think we're doing that in the right way at the moment.
We'll come on to finances a bit later on as well, because there are quite a few questions surrounding that. But just finally on this point then, Susan Walker simply says, when can we renew our season tickets? What do you have a plan for that? Do you know what's likely to happen for that, Ryan?
Yeah, we've got a couple of options on the table in front of us, and we'll address that in like I say, in the next fortnight. I would be quite confident in saying that supporters will know exactly what that looks like. It might not necessarily be season tickets on sale. That will largely depend on the capacity. Of course, if we're in a position where we could only let 2,000, 3,000, or maybe 4,000 people in the ground, it would be slightly immoral of us, I think, to sell season tickets at that point on, say, a first come first served basis, or even a ballot system. It's not something I'm comfortable with saying to a supporter who's come in to this club for 30, 40, 50 years, see you in 3 weeks because you're on ballot number 3. It sounds wonderful in principle, but in real terms, the amount of people that have contacted me and said, I've not missed a home game in 30 years. I've missed 3 games in 20. I don't want to be that person. I don't think anybody at the club does, who says, well, unfortunately, you won't be coming. So we've got to come up with the best solution. And look, Bradford Council are helping us with that. They will have a say, our safety group, in what our capacity can be. It's not as simple as the EFL saying, right, it's 30% across the board. Because as you can see, every stadium in the Football League is completely different. We have our positives to the Utility Energy Stadium, and we have negatives to it in terms of access and how we can get people in and flow, and what you can do with kiosks. And if you choose to open kiosks, your capacity comes down dramatically. These are all small things that, so we've got to get the balance right, Johnny, ultimately. But I would say in the next couple of weeks, we should be in a good position to do that, and that gives plenty of time, given the fact that I think Mr. Johnson said we can't have supporters in the stadium till October the 3rd, which is my birthday, so hopefully it's good today.
Stuart, from your perspective, how important is it to strike that balance correctly, and when the decisions are made and fans can come back, how big a positive is that for you and your team?
Yeah, it will be. I mean, go back to, again, my second spell. We had the first season we were undefeated at home, and that was as much down to the supporters. We came from behind in many games because of the COP and everyone in the stadium. So, yeah, naturally, I think, I've been, like probably everyone, been watching the football on the Premier League, and you can watch it with 2 settings. You can watch it with the crowd noise, which I've been doing. And the other day I came in and had it without the crowd noise, and just realised how difficult it must be for the players as well. You can hear everything. It's eerie. It's like a Johnson's paint tie, or whatever they're called now in them competitions. But yeah, listen, again, we've got fantastic supporters who we would have over 10, 12, 15,000 next season. Unfortunately, at the moment, that's not going to be the case. And I know, and I've got to say, I know Ryan won't say this, but with Ryan, Paula, Mark, we haven't got a big staff that have not been furloughed to it, but everyone is working so hard behind the scenes. So many questions to answer. But the stadium, even just down at the training ground today, the things we've had to do with the training ground to make it accessible and everything, I think we could have had maybe 18, 20 people in the dining area. Not the first week, the second week when Protocol 2 comes in. This time it's only 6. So there's so many different things that has to change, the gym equipment, etc., etc. But there is a lot of hard work going in behind the scenes, let me assure every fan out there. And the more we can get in, the better for us. There's no doubt about that, because this can be a formidable place when teams come to us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope it can be sooner rather than later that we get full crowds in as well. We are going to welcome one of our special guests in a few moments' time, hopefully, technology permitting. Let's wait and see on that one. A couple of questions about Julian Rhodes as well, which I can aim at you, Ryan, and a few people talking about his position. Adam Raj has been in touch. He says, why do neither Julian nor Stefan feel the need to be present at this event tonight? Do the supporters not deserve the opportunity to ask questions directly to the two men who are running the club? Give us your take on why they're not the ones sat in the seats at Valley Parade and at home as you two are right now.
Yeah, well, look, I think when Stefan Rupp bought the club, he was very clear prior to my time here that he would never be the person in the limelight, and that's never changed. I think Stefan's said what he needs to say and when he needs to say it, and quite honestly, knowing what I know about our finances at the moment, he's doing what he needs to do, which is very important for us. As for Julian, very similar. In the entire time he'd been involved in the club, even when I worked at Bradford Bulls, I used to never ever see very much from Julian Rhodes. But you know what I looked upon from the other stadium at the other side of this hill was I wish I had an owner at Bradford Bulls who just cracked on and did it rather than sat at fans forums and came up with buzzwords that weren't real, if I'm honest. So I don't really, at the end of the day, I've got a role here at this club, which is I've been appointed to this position by Stefan and Julian for a reason, and that is to work alongside the club's board and the owner and the chief executive. And one thing that we do have, and I think Stuart's touched upon it, is we're very, very close. And what Stuart talks about, what I talk about, and what Julian, we're on the same page. I don't get involved with players; it's not my area. But we all know where we're at. Knowledge is power, and I'm able to share anything that a supporter would need to know, want to know, quite honestly. And I think I've been very honest with our supporter base, which is probably something that's been lacking at this club, certainly in Stuart's second spell. I've got nothing to hide. It was smoke and mirrors, to say the least. It's not the case. We've got nothing to hide here, and that's the way the setup of the club is at the moment. And quite honestly, from a personal perspective, I like to be left alone to get on with my job and do the very best I can for this club. And my commitment is absolutely unwavering. I've proven that, and I will never stop until I leave and move on to something else. I will always give 120% here. And I think the owners know that. Julian knows that. So while that's on the table, look, it's not an issue to me. I like to be able to crack on. I don't have involvement from the owner coming up with ideas that don't make sense. Stefan's support is there. I can speak to him whenever I need to speak to him. And I work. I think I must speak to Julian more times than I speak to my missus, and she's not a fan of it. So, look, that's the way we are. I really don't think. I think Julian has spoke over the summer a couple of times, and so has Stefan when he's needed to, and they will speak when they feel like they need to speak. But ultimately, they have trust in me to do my job, and hopefully the supporters respect the fact that I'm doing that, trying to do that to the best of my ability in very difficult circumstances at the moment.
Just shed some light on a few of the points you've made there then about Stefan and his commitment and how long into the future his commitment looks as well. Is he in this for the long term, and how much is he actually financially helping out the club on a week-to-week, day-to-day, month-to-month basis?
Well, look, Johnny, we managed our finances pretty well, in my opinion, given what we've been faced with. I was quite keen to take the season tickets off sale, and me and Julian spoke at length about it, and we spoke to Stefan, and we came up with a decision to do that. The reasoning behind that was I still feel the supporters of this football club haven't been given a fair shake in the last couple of years. I've said that publicly time and time again. And I believe it's time we started to look after the people that have looked after us and shown us that unwavering, loyal support. We actually outsold our season ticket sales in total when we look back at it last season, after being dumped out of League One in arguably the most embarrassing season. Well, hopefully there won't be a more embarrassing one that I'll ever be involved in. And this club should never have been relegated from League One. It was ridiculous. The support they showed was fantastic. But when you turn that tap off, of course, and I think it was the right decision, actually, given what I know now about capacities that are coming and the challenges facing us, but it has turned off the revenue streams. So the owner has involvement. He's got no intentions of selling Bradford City. His 100% commitment at the moment is to keep us alive and keep us in business. He wants to maintain professional football in this city for as long as he can. I spoke to him last week, and his position hasn't changed on that. Quitting is not an option to him.
So in terms of his long-term commitment, is he thinking long-term still? Is he looking at 3-5 years down the line where he can take this club? Lots of people were asking about the long-term vision as well, which we'll come on to, I'm sure. But is he fully committed to the long-term vision here?
Well, without a doubt, Johnny, if there was ever a time not to be committed to the long-term vision of a club, April would have been the right time to come out with that, because what he's had to commit to between then and now is, you potentially 6-7 figures, and even that's with some revenue. So, and there will be more in the future without question. He's aware of some of the challenges we have, but we are quite, like I say, I think we're getting into a position where we're going to be able to turn some of those taps back on. Going to the order and looking for investment or ultimately pumping money into his own business isn't always the best approach. It's not something that I take any pride in. We want to be running this ourselves and ensuring that we're self-sufficient and profitable, to be honest. And then if investment can come at that point, it can go into areas that we actually want it to go into, rather than plugging holes in the finances. What I would say on it is like I say, there has been opportunities probably where we've been approached by people, never really materializes to anything. And it's a big commitment to run a football club, particularly now. He found a bit of a mess in 2018. There's no doubt about that. I believe he put that right financially. I know what he had to put in to make that right. Well over £1 million. Unfortunately, some of the Oliver McBurney money has soaked up other debts and losses. But I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. And his words to me were, we will come out of this as unscathed as we can be and allow the manager to recruit the team he wants to make the people of the city proud of what we're doing here. And that's not changed. So unless he's changed his mind in the last 24 hours. But listen, I speak to him enough to know where he's at. And I wouldn't be involved in a business like this if I didn't feel like there was that level of, determination from the top. If it wasn't there, I wouldn't, it's not something I could buy into anyway myself. So alone, Stuart. So that should be at least a bit of a radar for where I think we're at.
And what about Julian Rhodes as well? James Molyneux asks, are the club still searching for a new CEO, or is Julian Rhodes extending his contract with the club? What's the latest on that one?
No, Julian isn't extending his stay with the club. He came, quite honestly, to do a salvage job in 2018. I think his intentions at that point would stay to the end of that season. I'm trying to think, obviously changed the manager, and it was the wrong time. And if you look at the pandemic and the way things are panning out, it would be the wrong time for a chief executive to just down tools and say, I've done my bit. He also will not bring someone to the club that is going to take this club backwards beyond where it has been in recent years. And that's very important to me, and I'm sure it's important to Stuart that whoever takes up the mantle next is someone that we can both trust, believe in and buy into and take us forward. Whatever it'll be an exciting and interesting change. But I don't see Julian Rhodes being involved in our club in the long term at all, and it's not a secret. I don't think he's ever made that a secret. But I think it says more about the guy that he has got on with it, and even I've had conversations which I wouldn't keep private and say, I don't think now's the right time. And he said, no, it's not. It's not been a debate. He knows what he needs to do, but he has ultimately done a job here that was very, very important and shouldn't go unrecognised. We were in a very, very big mess, huge mess financially. It wouldn't have surprised me if we'd have entered administration in December of 2018, given what I knew. And he quite honestly pulled some rabbits out of the hat, turned things around, changed the style of the business, undoubtedly pulled back on some of the budgets, but where did the budgets get us? 9th in League Two. And that has been important. And he's brought an energy, certainly to people such as myself at the club, that has empowered us to get on with our jobs, do the best we can. And in overall, just improve the picture, the state of play at this club, which needed to be done ASAP, really. So
and Stuart, what about... Sorry, Ryan, go on.
No, when he does leave, it'll be very much job done, new chapter. But, at the end of the day, he's actively speaking to people about who will potentially be the next chief executive. He did have a replacement lined up, but the timing wasn't right, and that person moved elsewhere, and he's currently speaking to someone at the moment. So we'll see how that pans out.
Okay, so we'll keep people updated on that. Obviously, we'll let you know on BBC Radio Leeds as well. Stuart, in terms of the support that you've had from Stefan and Julian as well since you've returned to the club, how big a part has that been for you, and how impressed have you been by it?
Yeah, listen, I've spoke to Stefan as much this time as I did last time. Very little as in communication, apart from messages and texts when the games were on. I think I've spoken to him once over the pandemic, but no, it's even when obviously I was here the first time, and obviously, you know, the way things panned out with Edding, etc. Stefan was always supportive of myself every time he came over. He's not been over as much, naturally, I haven't been over in the last 5 months. But when he did come over, you know, it was always supportive. There's no doubt about that. And I think it's got to be said, as Ryan's already said, without his input at this moment in time, you know, I'd hate to think where the club would be, you know, because we have been losing money naturally, and it's haven't yet filled, and we know where it's come from. Regarding Julian, again, I probably speak to him, you know, a couple of times a day now about lots of different things. But he's always been there, very supportive. Not a case of just agreeing with everything I say, but actually probably the opposite, really. But being honest and loyal, and there's no doubt, and I think Ryan's summed it up there, and there's no way Julian would leave and pass it on to somebody else who he doesn't think got the club. He'll stick around for as long as he can find somebody. He's actively trying to find somebody that'll come be good for the football club, there's no doubt about that. But while we're going through this at the moment, I couldn't have had a better person to sort of confide in and to get answers from, and just to look forward. We've been trying to look forward. You know, we're trying to look forward and try to put things in and building blocks, as difficult it has been. So just to answer in a nutshell, yeah, they've both been very supportive, without a doubt, to me and to the football club.
I think that we can welcome as well our first special guest of the evening. Not that you're not a special guest, Stuart, obviously, and Ryan, of course, but we can welcome Callum Cook into the conversation. Evening, Callum.
Hello there, how are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thanks for joining us. Back at City then, staying at City, with City still. How have these last couple of weeks been for you as this move has kind of come to a conclusion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was strange circumstances, as I touched on in my interview the other day. But yeah, when I left, or when my loan got cut short, I just knew I had to come back. Like I said, obviously the fans and the club side of things is all like well and good, but from a football perspective, I've got a lot more development to do, and under the gaffer and stuff, and his background staff, I think that's going to bring it out of me. I've come here because, again, I think I've got a lot more improvement to do, and I'm really hoping for a successful season. I thought it would have happened last year, but I mean, I still can't put my finger on what actually happened. And I've been reflecting over the lockdown and stuff, and obviously collectively and individually as well. So it was a period for reflection, and for me going forward, how could I improve as a player and improve my contribution to helping the team out and stuff. So yeah, I've got obviously ideas of how I want to play and how I want to change my game a bit this season. And so yeah, I mean, I just can't wait to get going. And I think I think it's Wednesday or Thursday for the first day of pre-season. So I'm ready to get going.
I think we can get some other questions as well. Lots of people who are messaging questions. I'll hand you over to Jamie, who's got a few questions that have come into us. So Jamie, what questions have you got lined up for Callum?
Hello, Callum. Yes, and good evening to everyone as well watching at home. We've had a question in from Andrew, who wants to know what are the expectations for next season. He goes on to say, surely it's getting out of the league. I imagine that is something at the forefront of your mind, Callum.
I mean, I think that has to be the minimum. When the gaff come in last year, he said, look, minimum, we have to be in the playoffs. So this season going forward, I think it has to be higher than that. I think we have to be the top one or two to get out automatically out of this league. And we've certainly got the club and the stature and the ambition there. So it's down to us as players to show that on the pitch. So yeah, I think minimum we have to get out of this league this season, definitely.
What can you learn from the experience of last season that you can take into this new season going forward?
Well, obviously in football there's a lot of highs and a lot of lows. So obviously we had the highs of starting the season well. I think we were second for pretty much like most of the season before Christmas, and then after Christmas, I just, like I said there, I don't know what happens. But yeah, obviously we had the lows of that period after Christmas and stuff. So not just myself. I mean, most of the lads are still there from last year. I think we've all learned from that. And I think I think I can speak on behalf of all the lads here when I say I think we're dying to put it right. So, like I say, I'm raring to go. And again, I'll probably speak for all the lads on that one. So, yeah, I think it's September the 12th where the season starts, and it can't come quick enough, if I'm honest.
That must fill you with confidence as well, hearing that, Stuart, one of your players saying that and realising there's unfinished business left to do.
Yeah, certainly. I think one thing I can agree with Callum, that he said right at the beginning, he's got a lot of improvement to do. So, no, listen, again, when we've recruited this season, all the 6 players, the 3 that have re-signed and 3 that have come in, they've all got the same appetite, the will to win, the desire to do well for the club that we're looking for. And Callum's exactly the same. You know, we only worked with him for a short period last season, myself and Kenny, but we enjoyed what we saw, not just on the pitch, but in the dressing room, around the place. It's having an appetite and a hunger, and he's certainly got that. So, yeah, and just to let him know, it is Wednesday to pick his kit up and go through all the COVID-19 things, which I'm sure he knows, and Thursday when he gets his spikes on with the battens and runs around the pitch.
You must be looking forward to getting back into action though, Callum. Have you found the period without football?
Like anybody else in football, very difficult. It's been a very challenging time, but again, there's sometimes in life there's bigger things than football, and obviously COVID-19 is one of these things. I don't think it'll ever happen again in my lifetime. Well, I certainly hope it won't. But yeah, I mean, I've just had to keep myself ticking over. There's not much I could really do, to be honest, apart from a bit road running, and I've got a few weights in the house that I've been using and stuff. But yeah, obviously with the gyms being shut and stuff, you're very limited, which is it's difficult, but you've just got to make the most of what you can. So yeah, as the gaffer said there, I'm sure I'm going to get beasted on Thursday when I'm back in, but I'm looking forward to it because I really have missed it. So yeah, roll on Thursday.
We've had another message on the YouTube channel. This one comes from Daz, who says, hope Cookie gets to play further forward this season. Is that something you're looking to do?
Well, sometimes I say I'm a number 10, sometimes I say I'm a number 8. It's just, it's to be fair, I think I'm better suited being a number 8 box to box, and I think that's what the gaffer wants from me. So that's perfect, to be fair, because I'm a player who needs to be in the game and who has to be involved and stuff. And sometimes when you play just off the strikers, you don't get the service sometimes for whatever reason. But no, it will be nice to hopefully get a bit further forward because I want to add goals and want to add assists to me again. A few years ago when I was in League 2 with Crewe, that's what I was doing on a weekly basis. So I want to get back to that form. That's the challenge for me this season. I've set myself a target of a minimum of 10 goals, and anything over that will be a bonus. So I am setting some high expectations of myself, but I mean, it's realistic in a way as well, because there's 46 games, and as an attacking-minded midfielder, I think that's the bare minimum what you should be getting. So I try and look at Frank Lampard's clips on YouTube and stuff, and that's the type of player I want to be, getting forward, but also being in the middle of the park, dictating the play. So yeah, I'd probably say box-to-box midfield is my preferred game. So yeah, like I say, we'll have to see where the gaffer plays me.
I was going to say, what do you reckon, gaffer?
Well, it can be a 4, 8 or 10. You just make sure he's not a 12. That's what we'd say. But no, listen, I've spoke to Callum and I've looked back at his Middlesbrough under 23 clips and when he was at England and his Crewe clips. And I know why he ended up playing where Gary played him last season. And I think Cookie understands it as well. You know, he was the one that Gary thought could get on the ball and ping the passes about, which he could. And he's just sat in front of the back 4. We are not going to use him like that. We see what Callum talks about of breaking into the box and adding goals and assists. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with having an ambitious target, you know, and that's what we want players to do. We having realistic targets, but targets that you can really go and get. And if he can stay fit, then we've got high hopes for him in the goals and assist column, hopefully.
Just looking at some more of the messages that are coming through on the YouTube channel for you, Callum, and a lot of fans are welcoming your message at the start of this, which was that promotion is a bare minimum for this set of players moving forward. It must be something that is on your mind quite a lot when you put on the Bradford City shirt, and that weight and level of expectation.
Exactly. I mean, last year when I came in from Peterborough on loan, I came in because I seen where the club wanted to get back to. And yeah, that's what attracted me to the club at the time. And it's no different this time around. And to have a second spell in League Two, it's for a club of this size and stature, it's not good to be truthful with you. So it's also realistic as well. We've got good players in the squad as well. So yeah, it's realistic, and obviously that's our aim. And again, I speak on behalf of the lads, and we're just raring to go. And obviously that has to be the aim, undoubtedly. So yeah, I'm obviously hopeful that we can achieve that. And like I said, I think it's really realistic. So yeah, we'll have to see what the season brings.
Callum, before we let you go, because I realise we have to let you go at 8 o'clock, training very soon. What are you most concerned or nervous about, maybe?
To be fair, none of those things. It's more excitement. Like I say, we've had a long period off now, and it's going to be good getting back into the swing of things. Obviously, this time around it might be a bit different with protocols and stuff. But obviously, like the gaffer touched on there, we'll get briefed on that on Wednesday. So I think the first couple of weeks, when we have to get our heads around it and stuff, it's going to be a bit of an eye opener. But once we into that routine and we're into that normal routine, like I said, it's going to be sort of another day at the office sort of thing once you get it in the system. So yeah, I mean, it's obviously been a strange time and stuff, but yeah, I mean, me personally, I can't wait to get going. So Thursday can't come quick enough, if I'm honest.
I can tell you that there's many Bradford City fans who are very much looking forward to seeing you put the shirt back on as well, Callum. And thank you for joining us as part of this forum this evening.
No worries. That's it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
Top stuff. That is Callum Cook of Bradford City, and the news that many Bradford City fans, I can tell you on this screen in front of me, were very much welcoming your permanent signing at the club. And Stuart, as the gaffer, as the boss, as the manager, it must be so enlightening and so encouraging to hear one of your players talk about getting that promotion and setting the standard high.
Yeah, listen, we can all talk about it, we can all want it, we can all crave it. I'm sure there's another 20 odd clubs in our division are saying the same things, but it's doing it, so, and there's nothing wrong with having high expectations and the fans getting excited. But the bottom line is, over 46 games, we've got to do it. We've not got to talk a good game. We've got to make sure we do it when we go out on that training ground and work towards being a good team, a good unit when we go out on that park. So, yeah, I think like every player will be desperate to get back, like every manager and every coach, and we'll all have his aims and his ambitions. But there'll come a time when the talking's got to stop. Have confidence, have belief, have desire in each other, but we've then got to go do it on the grass, and that's what we'll be instilling into the players and in the group.
It was interesting hearing you say at the start as well, Stuart, about having the right characters in the dressing room when you're looking at your squad more generally. And it feels as if you've got someone there in Callum that is one of those characters in your dressing room.
Yeah, as I say, everyone that we've signed this week, and the 6 people we've brought back, the 3 that we've re-signed and 3 that we've newly signed, have all got that. For me, it's not an ageist thing. I don't know what was Gary Jones when he came to the club, 35, 36. I'm as happy working with young ones, up-and-coming ones, as I am with a good experienced one. So, but it's getting that unity and togetherness. We know there'll be ups and downs, and it's when you have them downs or them disappointments, it's a collective reaction that we need. And I said I was fortunate the last time round to have a good, really good group of senior professionals, and we added to that with some good pros. And we've got to take some leadership qualities and instill it together.
I realise you're still here, Callum, and I just want to ask you off the back of that point from Stuart, but how do you manage your own expectations as players? You know, you hear the manager talk about that, but as players, how do you manage that expectation?
Like anything else, you just, like the gaffer said there, you can do all the talking you want, especially in like these meetings and stuff, but it's when you go over on that white line on a Saturday when it really matters, and we just have to make sure as players that we're fully ready, mentally and physically for obviously the start, because I think it's vital that we get a good start, because that sets you up for the season, in my opinion. Obviously come September the 12th, I'm hoping that we're all in the right mind, and I think we will be. You know, I mean, it's been a long time, and like I say, you've got to be realistic with your expectations. But again, everything I've touched on there, I think, is more than achievable. So, we obviously, as I said there, we have to go out on September the 12th and have a good start, because I think that'll stand us in good stead.
It's something that was mentioned before you came onto the call, Callum, about the prospect of playing without fans at Valley Parade and playing behind closed doors. Have you given that much thought?
Not really. I mean, obviously it'll be a big miss. And I know there's talk of gradually introducing fans back in and stuff. And obviously I hope that's the case. You know, it'll be strange playing a Valley Parade when it's empty, because it's a great stadium. You know, it's a stadium that doesn't deserve being League Two. I mean, again, it's going to be strange, but at the same time, there's sometimes in life there's bigger things than football, and as I touched on earlier, COVID-19 is obviously one of them things, and obviously we wish all not just supporters in football, but every human being the best health and stuff. So I think the government will, like I say, try and gradually introduce things and hopefully get the fans back ASAP, really. But I think obviously we can't bring them back too quick, because for obvious reasons. So as long as we hopefully get them in by the end of the year, then I think that'll be great news, you know. But as players, I think we were sort of expecting to start the start of the season with obviously no spectators. But again, it is what it is. We just have to block that out and just play our own game.
I think we briefly saw our second special guest on the call enter this briefly. As I say, Elliot Watt, will hopefully have him back very shortly. But Callum, before we let you go, I asked you how much you may have been concerned or nervous about the season, but what are you looking forward to mostly about football coming back?
Just the match day feeling, and also the training feeling. You know, you can't beat it. We've got the best job in the world, in my opinion, and just be back kicking a football, having a smile on our face day in, day out and stuff. Well, I'm hoping so, under the gaffer's trained and stuff. But no, I'm sure he'll have all the troops rallied and stuff. But just that match day feeling and stuff. I've missed it. It's been, like I said, a long 3 or 4 months and stuff. So obviously just to get that back, get a bit normality back to every footballers and football fans' life, you know. So like I said there, I'm raring to go and I can't wait to get going.
Callum, it's been a pleasure having you on this call, on this forum tonight. And as I say, we do look forward to seeing you put the Bradford City shirt back on once again when the season gets underway.
Yep. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure. I enjoyed that.
Top stuff. That is
Thank
Callum
you.
Cook, who, of course, has signed a permanent deal with Bradford City after his initial loan spell. And we will be able to welcome in Elliot Watt as well, who, of course, put pen to paper today for Bradford City, signing from Wolverhampton Wanderers. Stuart, just listening to what Callum had to say there, and we'll hear from Elliot Watt shortly, but that is an exciting prospect, no doubt, for you in the centre of your midfield.
Yeah, it certainly is.